Okay, everyone, welcome back. Welcome back. So, I don't know where to begin today.
Just begin.
Just begin?
Yeah.
So, we're talking about, just to set the stage here, we're talking about the suffocated soul. The suffocated soul, Rav Kook is addressing, is the soul of the generation. It's the soul of the youth of the generation. And what do you do when religion feels too small? When the old dogmatisms, the old pragmatisms, the old robotics don't seem to meet the demands of the people. And in fact, not only does it not meet the demands of the people, it feels suffocating to the individuals, to the youth. It feels suffocating to people. We have a tendency to compartmentalize our lives. We look at our lives. We have box A. We have, what are the boxes of our life? We have box A is my religious life. Box B is my physical life. Box C is my intellectual life, my work life, and what happens is it becomes, when we have such rigid compartmentalizations on ourselves and on the way we look at religion and the way we look at our lives, so the soul begins to feel suffocated. And what Rav Kook is continually showing us, standard Cookian thought, is that when we elevate to a higher realm, we elevate to a higher place, we reach the light of unification. We reach the light of integration and inter-inclusion, where we no longer see the dichotomous nature of our lives, but what we see is the whole amongst the parts. Not just the parts as individual fragmentation, but the whole amongst the parts. And what Rav Kook is going to say in today's piece is that the answer for all this is to follow the light of ideals. That only through idealism can a person get above the fragmentation and stop compartmentalizing their lives to, this is my physical life, this is my spiritual life, this is my monetary life, and this is my family life, right? Instead of putting our lives in rigid boxes, which causes the soul to suffocate because it becomes the world of fragmentation, Rav Kook is going to teach us that the new generation needs idealism. That it's only through the high light of idealism can a person unite and unify and inter-include all the different aspects of their lives, as opposed to seeing just the parts without the sum total of the whole. So this is an amazing, amazing thing, because it's like, I think about myself like I'm definitely like an idealist, you know? But sometimes I feel like, well, I could be too rigid about my ideals, you know? But like the light of idealism is the light that carries a person and motivates us. Like all of us in this room, we all made Aliyah and had fine lives wherever we were living. And it was probably a good life with a big house and all sorts of, someone was saying they have this, I think it's like a DoorDash. I don't know if you're in the States and you listen to this, maybe you could explain to me. It's like this DoorDash subscription service, right? Where they could just order a carton of milk because it's a subscribe and pay. So you don't have to pay any extra from ordering a carton of milk from CVS to their house. So in a snowstorm or anytime, they'll just be like, oh, I'll take the carton of milk. And then they feel a little bit funny because it's just a carton of milk and they're schlepping a delivery guy to leave a carton of milk by their apartment. So they order one or two extra things to make it seem, right? So, but then all of us are motivated by the light of idealism. The light of idealism of wanting something more, of seeing something greater, of wanting a more integrated, holistic experience, as opposed to the fragmentation of exile and gullus and the diaspora. And that's what we've been learning. How Rav Kook says this process takes place only in Eretz Yisrael. Only in Eretz Yisrael. What are you saying?
I'm saying we're so lucky.
We're so lucky to be here, right?
We're so lucky.
We're so lucky to be here. Now, I want to show you this piece. We're gonna start today with a piece from Orot HaKodesh. It's on the other side of the photocopy. Okay, I wanted to read this amazing piece. I saw this a long time ago, and it came to mind as I was thinking about today's lesson. It's the other side, right there. Okay, this is from Orot HaKodesh, Volume 1, Chelik Aleph, Chachmas HaKodesh, it's in the beginning, letter 9. Okay? I'll read through it a little bit quicker, but it's remarkable. It's amazing. So, it's called Hashalom HaPnimi, inner peace. Who doesn't want inner peace? I do. Okay. Mipnei koach hakibur asher la'adam yediah sotrot yediah. Because of man's ability to perceive and grab and hold on to things, one thought, one yediah, one knowledge, one yediah, seems to contradict another yediah. Hargasha. One feeling contradicts another feeling. Tziur. And then one imagination, one vision contradicts another imagination. But the truth is, it's not the way the nature of knowledge is that when I know one thing and I learn another thing, these two things seem in contradiction to each other. Right? When I feel one way, I have one part, I have my angry part seems to contradict my happy part, right? One piece of knowledge, one feeling contradicts another feeling. On one hand, I feel like this. On the other hand, I feel like that, right? That we wind up seeing ourselves in parts, and therefore there's no shalom pnimi. There's no inner harmony. There's no peace of mind. But Rav Kook is saying, but the truth is, aval be'emes, yadia machzekes yadia. One piece of knowledge, if we're going to see, if you learn high enough and deep enough, one piece of knowledge actually contains another piece of knowledge, holds another piece of knowledge. The hargasha mechaya hargasha. And instead of seeing ourselves as contradicting parts in our emotional world, one feeling holds another feeling. They're not in contradiction to one another. V'tziur mashlim tziur. And one vision, I view myself one way, but then I view myself another way. If you learn deep enough with the light of idealism, with the light of Pnimiyut HaTorah, one vision holds another vision. They complete each other. They're not misnagate each other. V'kol ma shemit'ala ha'adam kelev u'mischravim ad shemotze ba'asmas tochen hagadol shel hashalom ha'pnimi. And the more a person elevates themselves and his emotional vessels and his intellectual vessels begin to expand, harchavat ha'kelim, right? Until a person finds the inner content of his life becomes inner harmony. And they see the truth of the different parts that one has with each other. They can see the synthesis and harmonizing of the kol, of it all. You ever see this written anywhere? It's mamish like IFS. Like, instead of seeing yourself as separate parts, when a person sees the self and learns deep enough, they wind up to seeing the harmonization of their parts and the integrated whole of the human being. So, and that brings inner harmony, right? That brings out the self. That brings the inner peace, right? So Rav Kook is looking at the generation as it relates to our thing, and he's seeing there's the secular part, and then there's the religious camp, right? And they both see that these are in contradiction to one another, right? But Rav Kook is saying when you learn deep enough, there's no contradiction. There's only oneness. There's only unification. Is that awesome?
This is how he embraced Darwin also.
Say.
When he was attacking him, he said Darwin will ultimately reveal greater light of Hashem in Torah in the world.
Right. Let me repeat that for the recording. Rav Michael's saying over here that that's why Rav Kook embraced Darwinism, because he understood that would unify things and bring an integrated whole into it. We could learn another time the different pieces that he says about how we're similar to a monkey and not similar. He says we're 99%, Rav Kook says another place, he says we're basically 99% similar to an animal, to monkeys. He says, I believe he says animals, I don't know if he says monkeys, but he says we're 99.9% similar to animals, but that 0.1%, that's all the difference in the world. You wouldn't trade that for anything. He says, so to our nation. He says, we're 99.9% the same as other nations, but in that 1%, that difference is, you wouldn't trade that for the world. It's a little bit off topic, but that's amazing, right? So, the hadavar holech u'misrachiv. right? The thing goes and it expands. Ad sheba la'omek amakim, until you're able to reach the deepest of deeps, the depths of the depths. L'makom shesham hastira charifa va'aza me'od, until a person sees that there's such a great contradiction. Ad kidei ketzef esan shel kodesh, until a person goes ahead and you're going deeper and deeper and deeper and you're asking questions and you say, wait a minute, this whole thing makes no sense. And a person reaches contradiction. Umirov hadas panimi, but because a person increases their inner knowledge, their inner awareness, mischreves umishpateshes b'chol kumas aruchnis shel adam. A person reaches that inner point of contradiction, but then when they go even deeper, then things broaden. Then they see the unification. Nasa shalom choder nokev v'yored atahom v'tahom v'klau. Then a person's able to make peace with penetrating depths that goes into the black abyss of everything. Right? It's like Rabbi Nachman says, I think it's Samach Dalet or Samach Hey, he says that the tzaddik is the one who could go into the kfiras and be Maila everything. Right? That you go exactly into the Tehom, but when a person learns deep enough and deep enough and deep enough, so then there's the Koach HaMesached. Right? That's why we're called, famous thing he says, that's why he's called Avraham HaIvri. I mean, this was Darshan, Avraham HaIvri from the other side, Me'ever HaYarden, because he says, only the tzaddik could go, it's actually a play on English words, can go over the klipos and traverse the klipos. Because he has the inner awareness to understand the Koach HaMa'achid, even betoch the darkness, even betoch everything, right? Haderech, it's amazing. Haderech she'olim ad lidei maila elyonazu. So how do you get to this amazing path that you don't see the world as dichotomous and a person doesn't experience themselves as dichotomous? Matchilin be'es asher adam omed b'metzava anamuch shel p'gias hastiros. Shegam az yeshnam shnei drachim shehem zeh l'mal mezeh. A person first needs to reach the point of inner contradiction, where they bring in where they start to break down. Like I heard, we have Michael over here, who's a Gaon marriage therapist, a Gaon couples therapist. I brought him into my class to speak, and he has such a succinct way to say. One of the students asked, they asked you, they said, well, when does a person come to marriage therapy? So the way you said it, I'm not going to say it in the succinct way that you said it. You said, it's the same thing with addictions. When the when the pain inflection point becomes so great, they can no longer handle that. They're not willing to live with that discomfort anymore. Then all of a sudden they come to marriage therapy, right? So it's like, or they seek out counseling, right? They seek out professional help. Not sponsor plug. Michael Friedman, amazing. It was literally the best marriage talk I ever heard from Michael. It was incredible. We're gonna
I want to hear the recording.
we're gonna bring it.
Keeps on talking about it.
We're gonna bring it to a bigger audience. Okay.
I'm waiting for it.
Either way, so he's saying only when there's the inner breakdown where you reach a contradiction, where the pain inflection point becomes too much the person can handle, only then can a person begin to raise levels and then now become to a sense of healing and not see things as an inner contradiction, not see things as dichotomous. Yesh.
What is it? How do you not see things?
Well, he's going to explain. He's just explaining the process. You have to reach the breaking point first.
Got it.
You have to reach the rock bottom first. Okay? Yesh asher yediyah soseres yediyah, because there are those where one part knowledge contradicts another thing that they know. Shalelis osa lagamri, it makes it completely negative. Ad asher ha'yediyah hastora mekoach shel yediyah haniknis nechshava ki'ilu enu b'metzias v'ki'ilu kolin yanahu reik v'tohu. So one part of a person's knowledge contradicts another part of the person's knowledge and their awareness, and then all of a sudden trying to work it out intellectually, but it leaves them feeling flabbergasted. It leaves them feeling like, wait a minute, none of this makes any sense. How did I end up here? What's going on here? My intellectual mind doesn't make sense of my emotional mind, and my emotional mind is not making sense of my intellectual. The person breaks. So a person sees thing as a contradiction. They see things, that's the pain inflection point, right? The yesh, so that's some people, okay? Now he's going to give another type. The yesh asher al yedei stirasa shal yediyah achas es hashniya mitmatzos tamtzio shal yediyah hastoros v'nechneses b'toch hayediyas niknes ahuva. So then there's another person who's able to, once they see how one thing contradicts with another, they're able to unify this into a single whole and not see things as dichotomous. Ve'az af al pi shemetzad hakli nira she'adam sholo v'soser es yediyah hamenugda be'emes mitzad or ha'penimi harehu bona oso umekana oso la'atzmo. So when a person sees the contradicting things, when a person goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and they start seeing the or ha'pnimi, the unification between all these worlds, then a person no longer sees it as contradiction. We're going to explain this a little bit, what this means, because in Orot HaKodesh, he speaks so high. He speaks like in these abstractions, like these mamish Orot HaKodesh. That's why it's like total abstractions. The same too is true with the emotional world. That a person doesn't see their feelings as contradiction, but rather one feeling sharpens another feeling, and therefore it leaves them feeling more broad. And then a person becomes very elevated. That's the depth of intellectual and emotional harmony, of inner peace. Until a person reaches spur of maturity and they start seeing that all their inner world is one organic divine slice. That my sad part is mashlim. It's like that. It's like mamish it's like that IFS, right? That IFS movie, Inside Out, right? What happens? Sadness. Everyone knows this movie, right? Riley moves. She goes through a trauma, and all of a sudden she takes sadness and she puts sadness in exile, right? So the whole point of the movie is when she puts sadness in exile, when you exile the part of yourselves. So what happens is it causes a chaos, because sadness is so disgusting to her. Sadness is such a difficult thing, so she puts this part in exile, and there's a breakdown, and it goes to the core memories. Everyone remembers the movie, right? But that's a perfect depiction, because when you see sadness or a part of your emotional world as a contradiction to the rest of your world, so then you lock it up, you put it away, and then that part gets louder and louder and louder, and then there's no inner peace. But once you learn deep enough and you're able to see how sadness is really trying to help you, that's when Riley brings it back, right? When sadness, that part of you, fear, jealousy, rage, resentment, just all the things I struggle with, anxiety, right? When you start seeing the depth of those, how those parts are trying to help you, then a person starts saying, right? Then a person's able to release. Right? And he says, Ashrayam Shekakalo, this is praiseworthy is our nation, that our nation is able to see the Kodesh, Mitochachol. Our nation is able to see the depths of all this. Our nation's able to see the depths of all this, how all this works out. So like there's a story I once heard from a Rebbe of mine, Rabbi Cherny. Rabbi Cherny said this, he gave the following metaphor, he gave the following story, that there was a Hasidic guy, and he went off the derech, we'll call him Katzkel. Chesky went off the derech. Chesky was going off the derech. So what's the first thing Chesky did? Chesky, he traded out his Hamisha glasses, thicky thicks, the plastic thick glasses, for sleek, modern, rimless glasses. Okay? And the guys went over to Chesky. They went over to the Rebbe, and they said to the Rebbe, well, Rebbe, you got to speak to Chesky. He swapped out his glasses for sleek, modern glasses. And that's part A, okay? As time goes on, Chesky changes his longer jacket, his rekel, for a short jacket. Rebbe, you got to speak to Chesky. Then the long payas, he cuts them. He's got now short payas. Rebbe, you got to speak to Chesky. He's going off the derech. Then Chesky, one day happens, he leaves it all. And he's living in a house, and there are shiksas around, and he's eating cheeseburgers, and quintessential, image over here. And the Rebbe had never spoken to Chesky. All of a sudden he gets a knock. He gets a knock on the door. And he opens up, he sees it's the Rebbe. The Rebbe's there shining with light. And he opens up, he's like, oh, Rebbe. He's like, tells the girls, hide in a room. He puts away all the wrappers, of the non-kosher food. And he goes, the Rebbe's like, new? He goes, Rebbe, I never meant to come so far. But I had questions. At first they were small questions, and these questions led to bigger questions. And these questions led to bigger questions. Then I had doubts. And before I know it, deep questions in Emunah. And then I started questioning everything. Every last thing I started questioning until it led me here, but I never meant to come this far. So you know what the Rebbe answered him? The Rebbe said, you know what your problem is? You stopped asking questions. Your questions brought you over here. But if you keep on asking the questions, they bring you back up to the top. And he said, when a person understands something deep enough, and they understand the Or HaPnimi, that Pnimiyut HaTorah is the Koach HaMa'achid, which gives you the light of idealism, so then you no longer see a contradiction between the parts of your life that aren't meant to be feel in contradiction with each other, right? You're able to see the force of unity, and therefore the soul that feels so suffocated by seeing a world of fragmentation. So what happens is, then you're able to see the oneness behind everything. And this is what Rav Kook is telling the generation. This is what Rav Kook is telling the generation. He's saying he's pleading with the Charedim, with the Frummers of the generation, saying, why are you casting the Zionists aside? You shouldn't be doing that, right? And he's telling the Zionists, right, this is the double-edged thing, right? Because Rav Kook is saying, no matter what you do, nothing will ever get lost, because there's a koach ha'ma'achid. This light of idealism needs to be infused with spirituality. And it's only through the light of idealism, the light of Pnimiyut HaTorah, through learning to the depths, can you now harmonize these two encampments of the secular and the religious, to see that they're not in contradiction to each other. Rather, they need to work together, body and soul, to infuse each other with this light. And that only happens through learning Pnimiyut HaTorah. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing how Rav Kook was able to do that. It's incredible. I love this. And therefore, the generation no longer needs to feel like a suffocated soul. You don't need to feel like you're suffocating, right? Because when you're not living in this fragmented compartmentalization, right? That anything outside the coastly-based measures is your mama's going to go off the derech, you know? You're moving away from that, so you're able to feel the shalom hapnimi, the inner sense. Awesome?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, now let's jump to Ikveit Zon. Let's jump back into the Ikveit Zon over here. Okay, now we're going to see all this, how he says this, how that one piece connects to the other. Va'amnam. It's the first large paragraph on the page. Va'amnam. Rak haderech hapone el rom hamachshava haidealit. However, only the person who is able to turn towards the light of idealism, that a person is able to turn towards, right? Only a person who is able to turn towards the light of idealism, who rak meir es hachayim umoleim tzachtachos v'ziv lahashivam el basisam hanoad lahem lefi tavam ha'atzmi. I know it's a long sentence. Haganas ba'omei kol lev nefesh. Only a person who turns to the light of idealism is able to illuminate life that's filled with glory and return to the very foundational nature of their very essence of themselves. Haganos be'emek kol lev nefesh. That is hidden in the depths of every soul. So to the extent that a person is connected to the light of idealism is the extent that they feel motivated. It's like working with people, like you always ask, like what does that vision of your future self look like? What does the ideal version of yourself look like? When you're fueled with idealism, so that gives meaning, that gives depth, that gives profundity, and that sets you on fire. But you don't have any ideals, you're like, oh. Ubamida kizos hamasrim hasichlim hamusarim miftachim. And to the extent with a person is able to break these limitations, hachaim zorchim mulim. A person's life gets filled with light and full. Kol rina v'tzahalabel, it's pasuk, kol rina v'tzahalabel, it's tzadikim, yamin Hashem oso chayil, yamin Hashem romema, yamin Hashem oso chayil. The sound, the voice of singing and rejoicing from the tents of the tzadikim, the yamin Hashem oso chayil, right? We know the song, yamin Hashem romema, yamin. The right hand of Hashem becomes the hand of strength and becomes the elevated hand, yamin Hashem oso chayil. Kol haneti. Now listen to this. Kol hanetios hativios omdos hechan berchavasam lo es tafkida olei atov v'anohar. All the person's inclinations and all their desires now get healthily subliminated to the expanses of connecting to Hashem. V'kol hamachshavas hasichlos heinen ma'oros hagedolum latzriach oram al kol ortzot hachayim. Right, and all the inclinations and all the intellectual perceptions that a person begins to feel breaks them out of spiritual claustrophobia. It breaks the person out of spiritual claustrophobia and it begins to unite them. So when you connect to the extent which one connects to the light of idealism, they get broken out of spiritual claustrophobia and now they start feeling not compartmentalized and they feel included. Right? As it says, Orach tzadikim ka'or noga haholech va'or ad nachon hayom. That the light of the tzadikim, it goes and develops until the brightness of the day. Al kain. Now this is amazing. Now he's gonna show that we need to have this radical inclusion. Al kain ein shum koach nidach. Therefore, when we connect to the light of idealism and we understand the light of Pnimiyut HaTorah, nothing ever gets lost. Ein shum machshava nidachet. There is no thought that ever gets pushed away. Ki'im hakol meir, because everything gets illuminated. Hakol chai, everything becomes alive. V'hakol muchan umezuman, and everything becomes developed and prepared. L'shares im malachei hashares, to be malachei hashares, to be angels that accompany you. V'l'shorer im kol ariel sachak, and to sing along to all the angels on the expanse. Lahashvia l'chol chai ratzon, that gives sustenance to every desire. Laharbos ha'osher ha'klali ve'aprati shel simchas Hashem b'maisa, and to increase the general richness and joy and the individual joy of all of Hashem's hands. Kisheim mit'alum umizbarchim, when these things get elevated and blessed. Kisheim smechim utmalim ziv, when they become happy and filled with splendor. Ein eitze v'tuga, there's no anxiety and worry and depression, right? When we see that nothing ever gets lost, that nothing ever bad happens, that it only looks that way, and nothing, that there's a place for everything that exists, then you look at the secular Zionists that he's saying, and you can see even their ratzon tov, even their development gets ola for the good. When you look at yourself, then you no longer feel spiritually claustrophobic because you see there's a radical inclusion, right? This is Rav Kook playing classical dialectics, right? That there's this radical inclusion that shows that the energy of the youth never gets lost, and therefore you don't need to have a claustrophobic soul. Because when you start looking for things inside Judaism, then the anxiety and the fear gets uplifted and begins to disappear. Ein satan ve'ein pegera. Amazing what he's saying about the early Zionists. There's no satan and there's no pegera, there's no bad thing. Rak sukas shalom prushas. You only have the tent of peace get spread around. The chofat kavod chofefes al kol regesh achayim. And honor gets hovering over all feelings of life. Al kol netiya machshava al kol maisa mipal. On every action, every inclination, on every thought. You imagine that if you want to not get learned in classic places, just say what you're saying right now, that by the early Zionists there was no satan or pega. When you learn deep enough, as Rav Kook clearly did, and he's illuminating our depths, to see something that obviously no one else saw except for this great tzaddik, right? That when you learn deep enough, and you learn deep enough, like we're saying, there's no inner contradiction, right? That when you see that nothing ever gets lost, that the good desire of the early Zionists nowadays has led forth to the birth of 7 million Jews living in our Holy Land, that's pretty amazing. When you see that there's more people learning in yeshiva since the time of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, from the 2,000 years, when you see that it's Ki Mitzvah and Tzeitzei Torah, and you see a flourishing Am, despite all the political problems, despite the crazy far left, despite, the deep state, right? Despite everything, you see the nation's flourishing. The nation's flourishing. You ain't seen nothing yet. What's going to be here? You ain't seen nothing. There's going to be economy. There's going to be everything. You ain't seen nothing yet. Once all this winds down, all this nonsense of Iran and everyone trying to attack us, they're going to be hanging on our curtails, like the Navi says. Everyone's going to be like, oh my gosh, you need to learn more Torah. I want to do business with the Jewish people, right? The economy, it's going to be booming, right? So nothing ever gets lost. Nothing ever gets lost. I'm just going to read to the end of the paragraph over here. V'kulam hein miskashrim yachad. Then all the parts, the religious part, the secular part, they all come together. Lasos al yadam ha'uma v'hador, to create for the nation and the generation, ha'klali v'aprati, the masses and the individual. Ish, now he quotes, Ish chai rov pa'alim mikavtziel, sheriba v'kavetz pa'alim laTorah. This is about the Ben Ish Chai. It says that the Ben Ish Chai was the Ish chai rov pa'alim. He was a man of action. And what was his man of action? That sheriba v'kibatz palim Torah, that he increased Torah. Meaning to say, he took Torah and he turns it into action. He took the secular and he took the Kodesh b'yachad and he transformed it one into another. So that was the Ben Ish Chai, that he was the man of action. Is that amazing? So he's merging the two. He was the one, the Ben Yoyada, the general, he synthesized the two. She'ein shu milchama kvadala, because no war, when you take that passion, no war, not against Iran, not against 2 years of war, no war becomes heavy for it. Shekol kol ha'adir mischaber imeniyas hayoser nimratzu hu menatzech, because anything that holds a person, because that mighty thing joins together and it creates alacrity and it creates eternality and strength. And anything that they're able to use, any good that's in the world, becomes strengthened under the Jews. Hodu v'nitzcho, it becomes glorified and eternal. And he quotes over here about the Ben Ish Chai, Hu hake es shnei arai Moav, he destroyed the two Ariels of Moab. V'hu yared v'hakes ari, he killed a lion b'toch habor b'yom hasheleg, on the snowy day. V'hu hake ish mitzri, and he killed the mitzri, the Egyptian. Ish mare u'biyada mitzri chanes v'yardalav b'shevis v'yigzol es hachanes miyada mitzri hargu b'chinato. And what did Ben Ish Chai do? What did Ben Yoyada do? He took the spear from the mitzvah and he killed it. Means when you synthesize the light of idealism, the light of spirituality, the light of Torah, the light of ruchnius, and you combine it with the youth and the energy and the passion and their idealism, you're going to transfer the whole thing by not seeing them as parts warring with each other, but as the unified whole. Then you get this unstoppable force. You get the Israeli Air Force, you get the IDF, you get Mamish, you get the whole package, and then as we saw, you get inner harmony. Let us be zoichet to see the unified whole, and let us be zoichet, mamish, to see all the good things. Because you ain't seen nothing yet.